Hi folks, it's me Michaela and welcome back to my channel. You already know what's up. We're doing a monthly wrap up of my reading. And as per usual, I actually finished a couple of these books in March. Like on the first couple days of March, but I read the majority of these books in February, so because this is my channel, I make the rules. They count as February books. We do what we must, especially in the winter, okay? Canadian winter is just getting to be too much. This year, it feels like it's just hitting a little extra hard, and I'm not a fan of it. Honestly, kind of rude, but you know, you gotta live what you gotta live with. I have a little stack of books. I actually have read a bit more than this because I did read a tad digitally this month. And to talk about that, let's talk about some stats because you know I have my spreadsheet on my iPad ready to go. In February, I read a total of 5 books. Yes, 5 books. Had to count it again. 3 of those were mystery books. I had 1 fantasy and I had 1 romance. I had 3 reads that were physical books I owned, and I had 2 reads that were digitally loaned through Libby. And I also had 3 rereads this month and 2 books that were new to me. When I said last month that 2025 was a year of rereads, it was no joke because I have been rereading. I did read a total of 2,083 pages in February, which is a average of 521 pages per book and 74 pages a day. And I ended up having an average rating this month of a 3.6. So rating wise, not the highest I've had, but we're still above average, okay? So let's talk about these books that I read, shall we? So the first book I read was a reread, and that was a reread of Flawless by Elsie Silver. This is the first book in Chestnut Springs. If you know me, I have been talking approximately all of 2024 about how once I finished reading Gold Rush Ranch, I was going to start a reread of Chestnut Springs for the first 3 books, and then read the 4th and the 5th book for the first time. And so I have begun that endeavor by rereading Flawless. I gave this a 4-star rating second time around still. I felt the same about it as the first time I read it. It was an enjoyable reread. I knew I would enjoy it. I do like both Rhett and Summer, though I do feel like a little bit like the backstories of these characters is like a tad too complicated. Like I feel like there was 1 layer too many in this onion. So it's not a 5-star for me, but it is fun. It is a good read. It's a good romp, and I think the character growth that develops in it is very strong, and I like the couple, so it's great. Also sets up the whole series, so you know you can't be mad about it too much, you know? So like now that I've read this, next up is my reread of Heartless. Yes, of Heartless. I don't know if I'm gonna do that in March necessarily, do my reread of Heartless. I'd say like probably like closer to the end of March, maybe even April, just because I have now started quite a bit of rereading that I'm like, ooh, how am I gonna keep up with this and also still read new books? Question mark, question mark. I then read Pretty Little Liars by Sara Shepard, which is, of course, the first book in the Pretty Little Liars series. Me and my best friend decided to read the Pretty Little Liars books, like, as a little buddy read. So I read this book literally in 1 day. We love when were these published? Like, the early 2000s? An early 2000s chapter book for teenagers. Like, read like nothing else, baby. I gave it a 3.5 star just because I think, like, you have to give it so much just for the pure nostalgia and the references to early 2000s just like society and culture, okay? Like it's just top tier. Though we did discover, me and my best friend, we discovered that apparently, okay, they're like revamping all of the Pretty Little Liars books and like republishing them so that they're set like present day. Like the first copy I was reading, I borrowed from the library, it actually was like referencing TikTok and stuff, and me and my friend were like, what is going on in here on this day? Because TikTok doesn't exist in Pretty Little Liars. This is the early 2000s. Like, why is it not talking about Fear Factor and Juicy Couture? Like, hello? So then I had to find the old version. So I'm thinking what I might do is try and find the paperbacks of the Pretty Little Liar books secondhand so I can read them, because I want to read like the original ones, and like I don't want to pay full price for those, but it seems like it's really difficult to find the old original version of them on Libby, and I'm mad about that. But I have to say, like, it's still a good mystery, and comparing it to the show, which I think is just an inevitability that happens now, having watched Pretty Little Liars. I'm actually rewatching Pretty Little Liars right now, and I'm forcing my boyfriend to watch it with me, and it's a great time. For me, at least. I can't speak for him, but I'm having a great time with that. And I just, like, never can get over the fact that basically the first episode of the Pretty Little Liars show is, like, basically the entirety of the first book. Like, they took the first book and were like, let's take a couple of these scenes and put them later on, but make the rest of it all just the first episode. Like, all of this can be the pilot. And I'm like, way to move way too fast. There's also, like, a lot of weird changes that you forget about. Like, I forgot that Emily in the books has, like, multiple older siblings, and also that Ren and Melissa in the books are only been dating for like 2 months at the beginning of the series, and they're not engaged like they are in the show, which I feel like is actually kind of a major difference. Also, like, Spencer's parents are atrocious people, and there's so much of these teenagers just like blatantly drinking and like being served alcohol in public, and I guess that's just like being a rich person for you or something. I don't know, but I'm enjoying it so far, and it's a great time to just kind of like read a fun little YA mystery chapter book from the early 2000s and to discuss all of the things with my best friend. It's a fun time. I'm loving it. So I then read How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen, Perrin. This is another mystery book. I really was like feeling mystery books in February. How odd. Normally I want to read romance in February, but I have been saying I've been getting out of my romance era. I gave this one 3 stars. I felt like it was just like fine. Honestly, like, I'm talking about it now and I don't even remember that much of like the plot. The main thing for me that I disliked about it was that it is like a dual timeline, and I felt like the dual timeline portion of it started quite well. I think it started good, and then it kind of went downhill the farther into the book you got, because the thing with dual timelines is you always like one more than the other, okay? You always like one of the timelines more than the other, and when that happens and you're switching back and forth quickly enough between the two timelines, you're like, this is okay. But then when you have like a huge portion where you're not visiting the other timeline, it like, you lost me. Okay, it's like, I'm gone. I've zoned out because I want to get to the other one. And I just like don't like it. I think like overall as a mystery, it was fine. It was good. It was fun. It was like kind of said it was for people who were fans of the Thursday Murder Club and Knives Out, which I'm a fan of both. But I honestly like didn't really feel like the vibe of the Thursday Murder Club or Knives Out were present. I think like the premise of the book is very Thursday Murder Club, Knives Out, but I don't think like the tone of the book was giving that. Like, it didn't feel that comical to me in a natural way. Like, I kind of felt like it was trying to be funny, and therefore it didn't feel as funny because sometimes our main character is a little annoying. The other thing is that this is actually like a series now. I believe the second book is coming out very soon, or has come out. It's coming out in 2025. It's releasing in 2025. And this is kind of like in a similar vein to Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone, where the premise of this book feels very much like a standalone book. So I'm very curious how they make it into a series, because this does not feel like there's more mysteries for our detective to solve, because our detective's not a detective. It's just like a person who ends up solving a mystery, right? So it's like, how does this person just keep coming across murders and things, and that they're then set the solve? Like, it seems odd. So I am curious to kind of see, maybe read the second book and just be like, just out of curiosity of like, how did you make this into a series? You know what I'm saying? I feel like you know what I'm saying. So I started this at the end of January, and I finished it like yesterday, and that was my reread of Order of the Phoenix. Now, I've talked about this before. I'm doing a critical reread of Harry Potter. I'm not giving any ratings. These are my childhood books. I am not providing any benefits to the author in the present day. And I'm doing this reread because I haven't read them in a while, and I like the nostalgia, but I also want to be more critical of the books I read when I was younger and kind of like revisit them with the eye and the knowledge that I have now as an adult. And Order of the Phoenix makes me sad because this book, like the plot of this book, is good, but there's just so much fluff in this book that it just drags it down to hell. Who let this brick of a book be published? Because once you get so far in, you're like, yes, this is good. But it takes you like 300 pages to get there. And then it slows down again, okay? And you have to read like 200 more pages of slog. There's just way too much talk of like, I have homework, I have an essay, there's an exam, oh no. And I get it, it's like you're 15, it's relatable. But like, this is not relatable because it is magic school where they're trying to save the world, okay? So like, I don't need relatable, I have so much homework stress. Get that out of here. Or like, mention it like once or twice. Don't have it be like a major plot point for the entirety of the book. Who thought that was a good idea? Because like I said, like once you get into like just the like cut down version of what this plot is, this is a good book. It's like a key book. They just made it way too big, so it actually ends up being my least favorite of the series. Now I haven't read the 6th and the 7th book in like quite a few years now at this point, but from what I remember, this was my least favorite book, and I think it's probably going to stay my least favorite book. Finally, in February, I started another reread. And that was my reread of the Thursday Murder Club. Basically, I read How to Solve Your Own Murder, which was all like, oh, it's like the Thursday Murder Club. Okay, and I had recently purchased, you probably can't see it now because it's behind the brick of a book that is Order of the Phoenix, but I recently bought The Bullet That Missed, which is the 3rd book. So I was like, let me do a reread of the Thursday Murder Club, and then I'll do a reread of The Man Who Died Twice, and then I can get into the 3rd book, you know? Because I love to do a reread. I buy books because I like to reread books. I like to reread the books that I enjoy, and I enjoy this book. I haven't read it in like a year. This was like my 3rd time reading the first book, because it's just so fun. I love these seniors solving mysteries. The characters are great. I love the tone, and it's like a really good mystery to solve and like try and figure out while also still being like cozy. You're never like concerned, but there is still tension, and there's like serious parts while still being funny. It balances it really well. I decided to keep it at the 4-star that I gave it the first time and the second time. It's just like a solid book, but it's not my like favorite book on the planet, you know? Like, I don't think this is a perfect book, because I remember like the first time I read it, there's a lot of just like plain Jane kind of character names that get confusing very quickly, because there's a lot of characters that are like just kind of like side people mentioned once or twice kind of thing, and it's a little hard to keep track of all of that when you're trying to solve a mystery. So that's like my one downside to the book, but like I think it just kind of gets better the more you read it because you're familiar with it. And it's been long enough since I read it that it's like I remembered most of the points, but there were still some things where it's like I actually don't remember what the end result of this plot point is. And so it was fun to do a reread and rediscover it. So there we have all the books that I read in February. I had a great time, I think, overall. I mean, did I though? I think I just like to try and think positively. I feel like despite February being a very short month, it felt very long. And like some of these books that I read at the beginning of the month, I like forgot I was reading them, you know? Like I forgot I read those because I was like, that surely that was January. And it was not. It was the beginning of this month. But we're now into March, so I can start anew. I have plans of reading Famous Last Words by Gillian McAllister. I'm going to pick that up and start that today. And I'm excited. You know, there we go. My reading wrap up for the month. Books. Yes. Review. If you like this video, make sure to give it a like, give it a thumbs up. If you happen to like me, consider subscribing. I'd be happy to have you. Let me know down below. Do you love to reread books? How often do you reread books? And if you don't reread books, why? Let me know down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And with that, I hope you're having a wonderful day today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.